All right, guys. Ohio State beats Purdue at 73-69. This was a fantastic game for Ohio State fans. The interim head coach Jake Diebler coming in there, getting the win over Matt Painter. I honestly there were quite a few different ways I was looking at this game. Like, how in the world did this happen? Did Ohio State body Purdue? No, they didn't do that. Did Ohio State outskill Purdue? No, I don't really think they did that. Like, this was just a game that just kind of Ohio State. Don't get me wrong, they played well and they played hard, but certain things just kind of fell into their lap in this way, and they got turnovers. I mean, they turned Zach Edey over 6 times in this game. When Zach Edey's turning it over 6 times instead of getting 6 assists, you're in it to win in this one. Brant, you're in Columbus, so you're obviously feeling the vibes and everything going on over there. What were your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, man, super excited to see Ohio State actually go out and win a game. It's been a minute since we've had the luxury of seeing that. And to do it against Purdue, I mean, my expectations going into this game were I flipped it on, not even knowing if I was going to even watch the second half, but flipped it on, see the Buckeyes start off on a horrible 8-0 run or something with Purdue up. I'm like, well, this is exactly what I expected. It's typical Ohio State and the typical Purdue just going out and kind of shellacking everyone they play. But then, that's not what happened. Ohio State there was a spark, and somehow they got up big, and then they almost choked it away in typical Ohio State fashion, but they were actually able to hold on and come away with the win, which was awesome to see. I think that these guys were playing he wasn't on the sidelines, but they were playing for Chris Holtmann. I think that him being fired kind of lit a spark under the team, and they were like, that. I think that's what it took to get them to really play a cohesive, complete game, to kind of realize, hey, we're not playing up to our potential. We got to be better. And they went out and did that today. And it was great to see. I mean, can they still make the tournament? That's probably an absolute long shot. But at least they're playing good basketball. And that's something that couldn't have been said for, a majority of the season.
Hey, it's not January anymore, so the January slump's not happening. You never know. No, I agree. It's going to be a really, really high uphill climb for this Ohio State team to win the tournament. But obviously, this is an energizing win. It's great for the state and for the program, especially a program that I felt like there were more Purdue fans there than it was Ohio State fans. I wasn't in the building, so I don't know, but
that's what it seemed like from watching on TV. It got louder, honestly, for Purdue than it did for Ohio State.
Yeah. Kent, what were your thoughts?
I just thought, you guys kind of touched on a little bit of this already, but I just felt like you're right. They didn't outskill Purdue. They didn't scheme them or anything. There was just an energy on the bench, and there's an energy in the shot today. I thought even though you're saying more Purdue fans there, I think they fed off what the fans were giving them. And I don't want to disagree with Brant right off the rip here, but I think they won despite, the energy that they got from Chris Holtmann leaving. I think they won because they had somebody else finally on the bench that was giving them some of that energy, which Chris Holtmann did not do the rest of the season if you're looking back towards the beginning of the season. And, if they really wanted to play for Chris Holtmann, it's too late now. They're pretty smart kids. They knew that his job was on the chopping block, and they should have did this weeks ago. And it's been a roster, JR. I've talked to you about this a bunch of times this year. I think this roster is talented. I thought at the beginning of the year they'd be closer to the top of the Big Ten than they are right now. And it just took this big thing to happen, this firing to happen, for them to finally bring it together. I don't know if it's because they were doing it for him or because he's finally gone and someone else was there. I don't really know, but it was nice to see them finally come together as a team and get a big win like this. They haven't had one in a while.
Yeah, no, for sure. Sonny, I see that question. I'm going to star that, and we'll talk about that at the end. I do want to make sure we talk some Purdue. Fisherman bringing up some good points here. The bench helped at the end of the first half. They certainly did. Ohio State's bench outscored Purdue's bench. What was it? 27-4, I think it was, or something like that. I can't add all the numbers up in my head right away, but I can add up 4, and that's what Purdue had from their bench. So at the end of the day, How do you do that? You're the number 2 team in the nation. How does Mason Gillis score 2 points? How does Cam Heide score 2 points? Yeah, I mean, you had Caleb First in there. You had Miles Colvin. You had Ethan Morton. Like, I'm sorry, but at a certain point, Ethan Morton, like, I know the dude plays good defense, but like, the dude played nearly 20 minutes. He had 3 rebounds. That's a certain point.
That line you can never get.
I mean, yeah, and Fisherman, another good point here with Edey off the court with 2 fouls. Ohio State 8 when Edey was off the court. I think at one point, I didn't keep track the entire time, and I meant to go back and look, but I didn't have enough time. But Ohio State went something like 16 on like a 16-2 run in the combined 2 parts when Edey was off the court in the first half. Like, I hate the narrative that Purdue is only good because of Zach Edey, because I think they have a lot of good players on their team, and I think there's a lot of guys who do things really well. But that's inexcusable. That's inexcusable, not just on the players. That's inexcusable to Matt Painter. Like, Matt Painter has got to get this together if his guy can get into foul trouble, which, you know, we can say all we want about the refs today, and it is what it is. You know, you always have to play with what the refs are doing. But Edey wasn't in foul trouble in the second half, and they still only outscored Ohio State by 1 point in the second half. So it's like, at a certain point, I mean, Brant, if you're a Purdue fan, I'm not saying it's like panic time, but Purdue kind of went on a bit of a bad streak at the end of the Big Ten season last year. Should Purdue fans be concerned about something like that happening again?
Yeah, I think for Purdue, this is definitely concerning to go and drop this game. It gives them flashes to every March where they play a team that's a lot lesser. You know, you're favored by a heavy amount because you're clearly the better team, and you go out and drop one because you just can't stop turning the ball over. It happens in every single March, and it just happened again with this team that is supposed to be, you know, head and shoulders above their teams from the past few years. So I think that it's definitely time to hit the panic button. And worth noting, like, usually the way they lose these games is by, you know, just putting pressure on the guards, and they just can't handle it, can't get the ball into Edey. But this game, it was Zed Key just popping the ball out from Edey seemingly every time that he touched him. And it was Edey himself that was turning the ball over. So concerning, definitely.
Yeah, no, I think at the end of the day, like, Edey was like, they had Zach Edey as the Ken Pom MVP, and I get that, like, Zach Edey is the best player on the team, best player in the country, but there were aspects to his game that lost the game for this team in this one. I'm not gonna say the loss was on him. Obviously, the dude had 22 points. Like, the loss isn't on him, but there were aspects of him turning the ball over and losing the ball that was on him for the loss in this one. Kent, what do you think?
I thought it was interesting that Ohio State did not fear him defensively. We talked about him as possibly being, on defensive all Big Ten, or one of the best defensive players in the league. And I thought that they were just not scared to go right at him. I know Thornton went right at him a couple times. I mean, one time he got it blocked. One time he floated it over. He had a couple times where he was attacking him, but I just thought that was interesting. Also think it's interesting that right now on the stat sheet, you have for Zach Edey 0 for 0 from 3-point land, which, you know, everyone knows that if Zach Edey does not hit a 3, then, you know, the game is in limbo at that point. They need him to hit a 3-pointer, right? For them to be able to get a win. And then one more thing, too, before I go, because he's been on the pod with me before, JR. Javamen. He said before the game today, does Ohio State get an interim coach spark? So he called this was at like 10 a.m. this morning. He called that. So I wanted to give him a little shout out on that, too. They definitely got that spark. And like I said, it was really nice to see. But yeah, just Ohio State attacking the big man and going right at Purdue. I thought it was really interesting. They weren't scared at all today of anything Purdue did defensively.
Yeah, no, for sure. Philip makes a great point here, too. Fletcher Loyer 1 for 7 and 0 for 1. There is no way Fletcher Loyer plays plus 20 minutes at a game and should only be taking 1 3-pointer. Like, that's on Matt Painter. Matt Painter screwed this up. If he has his 40+% 3-point shooter, Fletcher Loyer, who is not a dribbling threat, who is not like, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to take away from the guy. The guy is a really, really excellent 3-point shooter, one of the best in the country. And he took 1 3-pointer today. The team took 9. Like, you're not going to win. You're not going to win at the rate that Purdue wins. Yes, you're still going to win games because you're dominant, but you're not going to win at the rate that Purdue wins if you are not taking advantage of one of the best aspects of this team, which is 3-point shooting, which is that allowing Zach Edey to pass from the post and get 3-pointers. If Zach Edey had 6 assists in this game instead of 6 turnovers, Purdue wins this game. It's the way it is. So.
I do think that this was we talk about this whole season. We've talked about, is there tape now on how to stop Purdue? Is there a blueprint for how to beat Purdue, because they've been beat a couple times now? But if you flip it, though, now Purdue has a blueprint to say, okay, this is how we lost. This is what we need to fix going into the tournament. So if you're a Purdue fan, this might not be the worst thing that's happened this late in the season. Okay, they did X, Y, and Z against us. We have to fix that before March gets here. It's not the worst thing for them. I'm still very confident in Purdue. I mean, obviously, that you should be, because we've only lost 3 games this year. It's still the best team in the conference. So I still have a lot of faith in them to make a deep run in March. I'm not that concerned about this loss. And I do think that they have stuff that they can look at now and say, hey, we can fix this in the next 3 weeks before it gets really serious and we win or go home.
Yeah, I mean, as long as they actually fix those things, right?
Right.
You learn from your mistakes. As long as Matt Painter, I mean, let's be honest, they're gonna, if they play like they've been playing the rest of the season, they're gonna win the Big Ten. They're gonna make a run in the NCAA tournament, probably make a Final Four, and then from there, it's just like, you try to win the game, and it is what it is. Whatever happens, happens. But if they start playing like this, where the offense is just not really in sync, and Fletcher Loyer is only shooting 1 3-pointer, he plays 20+ minutes, like. Yeah. So we have a good question here from Sonny. We'll wrap it up with this. Brant, we'll go to you first. Is there any record Jake Diebler, that being, could finish out the season with, where you think he'd be comfortable, or you think you'd be comfortable just making him the permanent head coach? Brant, what record does Jake Diebler need to achieve in order to make the permanent head coaching role?
I'm just going to say no. I think it's an interim coach spark, like Ken said. You see it in sports all the time, where a coach is fired and the team comes out and wins their next game. It happens all the time. And I love Jake Diebler. I've been a big fan of everything he's given to Ohio State. He's been a great piece of the staff here the past few years. But you just don't go and hire a coach from the staff who didn't succeed for the past few years previously and expect different results. It's not going to be any different than it would have been if you kept Holtman around. So, I mean, if they're going to fire Holtman, they're going to get rid of the entire staff. He could even go and win the Big Ten tournament, and I still think they go elsewhere. Could they keep him around on the staff as an assistant coach? And would I be happy with that? Yeah, absolutely. I don't think he's going to be the head coach. I just don't think there's anything he possibly could do to get hired full time and remove that interim tag.
What do you think, Kit?
I wouldn't say there's nothing he can do. I mean, obviously, if he goes undefeated the rest of the year and wins the Big Ten tournament, it's gonna be tough to get rid of him. But clearly, I don't think anyone would subscribe to thinking that's going to happen. I think if you're Diebler, you have to be focused on putting together a pretty good end of the year right here. Try to make as deep of a run in the Big Ten tournament as you can, and then he should be looking at where his next move is. Not focusing on trying to get the Ohio State job, just trying to build. I think he should be building his resume for what his next job will be, and then go from there. But yeah, I agree with Brant. I don't think that they're going to hire him. I think that there's going to be too much time in the offseason and too many other guys across college basketball. There's going to be a ton of guys available this offseason, and Ohio State is going to want to explore all of their options before just going with Diebler because he had a good end of the year. I don't see that happening unless it's an unreal run here at the end of the season. I don't see it happening either.
Yeah, I think the only way that he gets it, which I don't think there's any way in the world this happens, but if he takes Ohio State to the Sweet 16, if he does what, Chris Holtman was never able to do, it's okay, well, this guy, maybe he can get more out of this team that Chris Holtman was never able to, and maybe he'll keep recruiting at the same rate Chris Holtman was. But yeah, I don't see that happening. I do think there's a benchmark he can get to, but I don't think it's going to happen. And at the end of the day, after seeing kind of what's happened with Rodney Terry at Texas, I'm not going to say they're bad this year, but I definitely feel like they're not reaching their full potential of what they are. And that makes that difficult. So go through a few comments here and then we'll move on. Purdue's biggest strength is their biggest weakness. Edie, you can only play a certain way with him. Hard to stop, but easy to game plan for. I think that the game planning is I wouldn't call it easy, but you can figure it out. I mean, ball screen to the top of the key, hit that shot. I mean, Bruce Thornton was eating off that all day long because Zach Edey drops in his coverage so much. You just hit it right up there. But you also have to have a guy who can hit that shot. So I would say, yes, game planning is fairly simple to beat, but the execution itself is rather difficult. You have to have the right guys there. So I see what you're saying, Philip. Check it out. 7. Pretty sure Illinois is going to have a piece of the Big Ten title. They very well could. They very well could if they play the way they're supposed to. They need to play a little more defense, in my mind. I didn't like seeing Maryland score 80 on them this weekend, but still, I mean, Illinois, very good team, and yes, they have their pieces back together. So, all right, guys, any more thoughts on this one before we move on?
I mean, they still play this year, don't they? Don't they have one more game against each other? Is that like
Illinois and Purdue? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would say. I don't know. If they win that game, yeah, sure. I
Right,
wouldn't
that's
say
what I'm
that.
saying. Like they have a chance.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I think, but it's at Illinois. I think I'm checking really fast.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, Illinois still has at Wisconsin, which take that for what it's worth, and then Purdue. So, and then at Iowa, then at Penn State, Iowa, Minnesota. Don't sleep on Minnesota now. Thanks for listening to the Big Ten Huddle. Please do like and subscribe. We appreciate that. If this was your first time listening, we are the Big Ten Huddle. We cover all things Big Ten football and basketball. We have a long episode every Sunday, Tuesday, and Wednesday night, all at 9 o'clock. So come in, check us out, get in the chat, let us know what you're thinking. We would love to have you join us and learn more about the Big Ten.